in spring of 2026 as part of the Miller Williams Poetry Series, edited by Patricia Smith. She holds a PhD from University of North Texas and an MFA from Cornell University. Originally a Michigander, she now lives in South Carolina with her spouse, who was here earlier, you might have recalled his presence, and a small herd of rescue pit bulls. Put your hands together and let's give a warm welcome to Stevie Edwards.
All right, so I'm just going to read a few from my new book. It came out in March, so I'm still excited to get to read from it. So this is the first poem of the book, and I'm trying to mostly read things that have a lot of flowers in them, but I'm going to read one poem about moving to the South. So this first poem is called Father's Day. I have streamlined gift giving with an efficiency the men in my family would applaud. A digital meat thermometer with Bluetooth for all the fathers in my life. My father, my father-in-law, my stepfather-in-law. My husband does not get one because he does not want to be a father. But we make love twice in the same day. We're good at it, making each other fuzzy with pleasure. I don't think two people could have been happier, Virginia Woolf wrote in her final suicide note. I think he's afraid he is my Leonard, or I am afraid he finds some joy in it. Making coffee for a woman who spends too many mornings drowning in her own mind, missing the thrill of summer unfurling outside the window. I can't blame him for not believing I'd be good at wiping asses and noses, but lately everything mamas need. The dogs say mama when I fill their bowls, and the hydrangeas say mama when I water them. My little niece asks whose mama I am, because I'm the right age and size for a mama. Toddlers clutch at my legs at zoos and breweries with fence yards for children to run while their parents drink with friends with me. It's selfish, but sometimes I look at my love's long dark lashes, his high cheekbones, and think, oh God, I need more of him. We can make something so beautiful, but we don't. And this is a poem about, so my first time moving to the South, I moved to Charleston in 2015, and it was a bit of a wake-up call for me in some ways. So I became, this is called Yes Ma'am. I became a ma'am for the first time in Charleston and started wearing more sunscreen. A cashier at a fast casual restaurant, a polite young man, hurled it across the counter with my breakfast sandwich. Would you like something to drink with that, ma'am? I was 28 and too northern to understand in that respect. Not to point out that I'd taken poor care of myself. Too little water, too much coffee and cocktails, no gym membership, a lonely bicycle that scarcely saw the sun. Years later, I wear my ma'am card like a badge while teaching. I've tried to grow into it. A size 12 shift dress and sensible shoes with arch support. There is something freeing in not having to walk around in my girlhood, in retiring from an idea of beauty that always fit uncomfortably. To be a girl means being uniquely capturable, uniquely seen by the eyes of men my father's age. But doesn't a man need help with carrying her groceries and have nice cursive handwriting and something nice to say? Me, I want to transform into the meanest witch. To be all warts and cackle as I traverse the sky on a vintage Hoover, as cruel and magical as I've earned the right to be by staying alive. And I thought I'd finish with some poems about the lovely flowers. So when we moved here, we moved from North Texas, outside of Dallas, and when we were looking at houses, we came into our neighborhood and we're like, this neighborhood is prettier than any of the parks in North Texas. Just because it was so green. Well, we came in, I think early April, so around this time, and I just remember all the azaleas were out in front of the house we ended up buying, and everything was lush and green, and where we were coming from was just like dirt. I mean, North Texas has its charms, but it's not the scenery. So this is Ode to Gardenias. Oh, pretty honey. Oh, sweet orange and magic evening bloomer. I'm so grateful the former homeowners knew how much I might need you to intoxicate the night air in late May after a long, too long winter. I can't find the right bottle of perfume to capture what I love about you. Your fragile petals wilt nearly as soon as cut for a vase. You were never meant for the indoors, nobody's easy home decor. You're the, if you want me, comb the dust for me kind, hiding your honey musk under every blade of grass, every lawn chair. I used to be that kind. Now I am easily found. My name signed on a mortgage and a prenup. I love how you wave your sex around in the open air, how you lust a little more at sunset. I am stationing myself in a hammock by your side until the sun desiccates your petals into dust. I'm told I ask too much of love, ask it to last beyond its reasonable limits. But won't you stay a little longer, smoothing the wind through summer solstice? It's possible you've discovered that this poem is not really about you. And this last one is Ode to Hydrangeas. You were my something blue at the center of my wedding bouquet. I ordered you in bulk from Costco, surrounded you with peach and white roses, bound stems together in a symphony of yes and green floral tape. Yes, I did my best with a meager budget, and you were the star of the ensemble, a dozen vases of you serenading every inch of the living room. I kept you long past your prime, sweet funk of rotting stems and all, I adored you. Now, I'm afraid I've planted you in the wrong sun. The rays too severe in our front yard where I wanted you to greet me each day this summer. I will give you a good long drink each morning if you'll stay in your body. I know how it is to be planted in the wrong terrain. I didn't want to move to this Carolina stretch of sky, but I wanted to keep waking next to his long body, and he wanted to grow here. I'm trying to keep opening for him beneath the harsh light. Thank you.
I'll give another round to Stevie Edwards for those Thank you again for everyone coming to spend their Saturday here indoors for poetry. It's just a jolt of beauty and that we all need, and maybe a jolt of hope and joy. Our final and keynote reader today is the poet Nickole Brown. She received her MFA from Vermont College, studied literature at Oxford University, and I did not know this, was an editorial assistant for the late Hunter S. Thompson. She worked at Sarah Mann Books for 10 years. Her first collection, Sister, a novel in poems, and that must be the novel you were like, yay, Tonka! A novel in poems was published in 2007 with a new edition republished in 2018. Her second book, a biography of poems about her grandmother called Fanny Says, came out from BOA Editions in 2015 and won the Weatherford Award for Appalachian Poetry. The audiobook of that collection came out in 2017, so we can hear it as well as read it. She has received grants from the National Endowment for the Arts, the Kentucky Foundation for Women, and the Kentucky Arts Council. She was an assistant professor at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock for 4 years, and the co-editor of the Marie Alexander Poetry Series for 10. She's taught at a number of places, including the Great Smokies writing program at UNCA and the Hinman Settlement School. She lives in Asheville, North Carolina, where she periodically volunteers at 3 different animal sanctuaries. Woman after my own heart. Since 2016, she's been writing about these animals, resisting the kind of pastorals that made her and many of the working class folks from the Kentucky that raised her feel shut out of nature and the writing about it. Her work speaks in a southern, trash-talky way about nature, beautiful, damaged, dangerous, and in desperate need of saving. To those who were our first guides, a chapbook of these first 9 poems won the 2018 Rattle Prize, and her essay and poems, The Donkey Elegies, was published by Sibling Rivalry Press in 2020. In 2021, Spruce Books of Penguin Random House published Write It, 100 Poetry Prompts to Inspire, a book she co-authored with Jessica Jacobs, with whom she co-founded the Sun June Literary Collaborative. In 2024, she was the writer in residence at College University, and she teaches every summer at the Swanee School of Letters MFA program. Currently, she's the president of the Hellbender Gathering of Poets. As we've seen and heard today, and we're all going to register for an annual environmental literary festival, that's hard to say, set to launch in Black Mountain, North Carolina in October 2026. And we are so pleased and punched and proud to have Nickole Brown here today with us. Let's everyone welcome her with a big old round of applause. And let's also thank her for leading that wonderful workshop. And I think most of us have something very generous about it. So, yes, thank you.
Hey y'all, thanks for hanging out so long today. Man, oh man. I'm so grateful to be here, and Amy, thank you for all the work that you put into making this happen. It was beautiful to hear your work. Stevie, it was so good to hear your work, and I'm so sorry that my dog decided to take a big slurpy drink of water.
It's totally fine.
She really apologizes. Sorry, I'm sorry. All right, so there's a handful of things to read. I'm going to read a couple of poems, and then I'm going to read a lyric essay, which is sort of in poetry form, and then finish off with one last poem. So my first piece is a poem called Parable, and it celebrates the cicada, which I mentioned earlier and I'm relatively obsessed with. The cicada to me is a totem of survival and of resurrection. And as I said earlier, it's a peaceful being that does little harm to trees or animals or any living thing, including us. And they're relics of the ancient world that once sang to dinosaurs 5 million years before humans evolved, which is pretty cool if you think about that sound and the other beings that have heard that sound. And last spring in 2024, more broods were anticipated to emerge simultaneously. We've seen since 1803. So you have the 13 years coming up, you have the 17 years coming up, and it's just this mark of the cycle of the earth. Now what is interesting is that because of the climate crisis, they're now starting to emerge off sync. And when cicadas don't come up together, they don't survive, because that is their way of survival. So this poem is about that, and it's really thinking about the next simultaneous emergence of the 13-year and 17-year cicadas, which isn't due to happen until 221 years from now. So kind of think about that. So this is called Parable. So, Parable. Let us not with one stone kill one bird, much less two. Let us never put a cat in a bag, nor skin them, regardless of how many ways there are to do so. And never let us take the bull, especially by his gorgeous horns. What I mean is, we could watch our tongues or keep silent. What I mean is, we could scrub the violence from our speech. And if we find truth in a horse's mouth, let us bless her ground down molars, no matter how old she is, especially if she was given as gift. Again, let's open her mouth. That of the horse, I mean. Let us touch that interdental space where no teeth grow, where the cold bit was made to grip. Touch her there, gently now. Touch that gentle empty between her incisors and molars. Rub her aching, vulnerable gums. Don't worry. Doing so calms her. Besides, she's old now. She's what we call broken. She won't bite. She's lived through 2 13-year emergences of cicadas and thought their rising a god infestation, thought each insect whirling up an iteration of the many names of God, because God to her is the grasses, so what comes up from the grass is God. She would not say it that way, nor would she say the word cicada. Words are hindrances to what can be spoken through the body, or what she tolerates when straddled, giddy up on one side and whoa on the other. After it's all, good girl, Mabel, good girl, before the saddle sweat is rinsed cool with water from the hose and a carrot is offered flat from the palm. Yes, words being generally useless, she listens instead to the confused rooster stuttering when the sun burns overhead, when it's warm enough for those timekeepers to tunnel up from the dark and fill their wings to make them stiff and capable of flight. To her, it is the sound of winter coming in her mane, or the sound of winter leaving in her mane. Yes, that sound. A liquid shushing like the blood fill of stallion desire she knew once, but crisper. A dry crinkle of fall leaves. Yes, that sound is a fill their new wings, then lumber to the canopy, demand, come here. Come here. Come here, now come. If this is a parable you don't understand, then, dear humans, stop listening for words. Listen instead for mane, wind, wings, wind, mane, wings, wings, wings. The lesson here is of the mare and of the insects, even of the rooster puffed and strutting past. Because now there is only one thing worth hearing, and it is the plea of every living being in that field we call ours, is the 2-word commandment trilling from the trees. Let live, let live. Can you hear it? Please, they say, please, let us live. So I was asked a couple of years back to be a part of this anthology called The Field Guide to Southern Appalachia. It's a really cool little book, and each poet was given a different species to write about, species that are special to this region, indigenous to this region. And I was given the eastern wood rat, and I was like, oh man, the rat? And then I nerded out about the rat, and this is always what happens to me once you learn something or someone, and then you know them, and then you start to love them. Anybody? Yeah. So I ended up writing about the wood rat, and of course this is also about my hair. We got some curly girls in here, Donna. I'm going to dedicate this one to you. Okay. Self-portrait as Eastern wood rat. Let us begin with my hair. That frizzy, God-forsaken mess that sprung like Velcro from my head at 13. That hormone-fed explosion of caustic fuzz that laughed in the face of any hair group or oil or spritz we could find at the dollar store. It was the middle school tease, a homeroom landing pad for paper planes and spit wads, half-chewed gum and gummy bears, a regular sport at my school with one goal in mind, to make the redneck girl in her high-water jeans cry. My hair, not just unmanageable or unruly or going through a phase, but a real fucking rat's nest. And that's just what my mama said, brush in hand. This, friends, is where the learning begins, because what I didn't know was only one rat builds that kind of miracle nest. Only one rat's a genuine pack rat, and that rat's made for the land that gave it a name. You see, I was wrong. I thought a rat was a rat was a rat, but I should have known better to call all similar beings all by one name, to hate them all the same. This rat's not the undifferentiated mass gnawing wires of downtown neighborhoods and subway lines, not those garbage liquors that once I squeezed my way to the city squeezed me, making me feel dirty no matter how much I scrubbed. No, this rat's a real forest nibbler, wearing its ever-growing teeth down on ground-fall pecans, happy just for what the seasons bring. And here's what I can't let go. Despite the talk of rats taking over what we call our world, this rat, forgive us, is nearly extinct. It's our fault, working hard as we have to pave ourselves over, our best tracks stripped mined or stripped mauled, our mountaintops literally removed for a vein of coal. Because like a mistreated girl whoring in the back of her daddy's Chevy, it's as if we want to throw away what we were given because we were once made to feel it wasn't worth a damn anyway. This might be about shame. Like how I worked so hard to scrub my tongue of the talk that, like me, came up from this mud. Or how, when I told my mama what happened at school, she put down the brush, quit her fuss, and said, "Baby, they're pea-green Indians all, don't you give a rat's ass." What I need to say is I grew up and figured how to shellac my hair into something nearly presentable, to trick it into looking like something it's not. But still, when I look in the mirror, it's that little girl from Kentucky staring back. No. What I mean is there's this kind of rat who works on a single nest all its life and lives in that one place till it dies, just as I can't seem to quit and leave this place behind. No, that's not quite right. Let me say this plain. What I mean is I once thought myself white trash, that rat of all rats. Because now I know I was only listening to the trash I was told. Because a close look at the eastern wood rat reveals a creature maybe destructive and more than a little hungry, but meant to be here and still holding on, making a high holy mess of sticks and branches, broken glass and dried shit, crow feathers and rusted cans, wood screws and napkins and candy wrappers, forgotten flannels and cassettes, Barbie limbs and lost gloves, shreds of anything, just anything it can find to survive. All things sacred and profane to keep safe and warm in a place it can call home. That was sweet, thank you. So Hurricane Helene, that was something. Did it hit you all?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I ended up writing about Hurricane Helene months after we finally got through it, and I was having a really hard time. It was so interesting when it hit because, you know, that there's that adrenaline rush. There's the cleanup that has to be done, the shoveling that has to be done, you know, when you're helping your neighbors and everyone's running around. And then the sadness kicked in a couple months later. It was like when everything was quiet, the electricity was back on, the internet came back, we finally had running water again. And I sat down one day, and at the top of a piece of paper, I wrote 100 reasons not to die. because that was what I needed that day. And so I'm going to read that for you here. So 100 Reasons Not to Die. Number 1, because oranges. Because a single slice held to the light is magic. And sometimes the scene in the window of its cathedral is a fallow field on fire with dawn. And sometimes it's not pulp you see, but a case of mantis eggs, a twitch of strange water held by skin made of soil and sunlight. No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to get all high lyric on you. What I mean to say is yesterday in the kitchen, I stood holding an orange slice. Though long past time to get dressed, I was still crusty in my coffee-stained robe because I couldn't stand putting on clothes to even pretend to welcome a new day. Because earlier I had a look in the mirror and thought, what face would ever want to kiss this face again? But then there was this one fruit carried all the way from Mexico because the weather in Florida is fucked again this year. And ever since I was a little girl in the back seat of a long car driving down the endless hours of Florida, I've loved orange groves. And because back then I thought myself bored to death, I was playing with my speaking stuff. Y'all remember speaking stuff? If you're old enough, you too will remember that battery-powered plastic toy that in its spelling bee way, you would say one word, then the next. For miles and miles, I would push its citrus-colored buttons, trying to unlock the secret codes of words, trying to learn how to spell things right. Even then, I loved orange groves like I loved the word grove, Grove. Loved the way it was spelled, the last bit of the word love snuggled right alongside that single syllable's opening growl. The kind of love okay with its own first letter pitched out the window much in the way my mama would for cigarette butts on the long drive down. The kind of love unafraid of losing, which is the kind of love that now I am not. Nevertheless, do you hear them? All those O's, I mean, orange, grove, love. A friend once said to me that O was the most mournful vowel, and I exclaimed, oh, which was funny, get it? And my friend was talking about the letter O, and I responded, O-O-H, and while I don't remember if my friend laughed, I know I did, maybe a little too hard. It made me laugh because this is my unkissable brand of humor. Grammatical, punny, full-on word nerd. And yesterday morning, my face was so swollen as to be the mournful vowel itself. But then, oranges. Oranges with the word orange opening with that vowel, and oranges themselves shaped like that vowel. A mournful vow, yes, but see how the fruit resists. Even picked up and shipped hundreds of miles from its mother tree, it doesn't seem sad, at least not like me. No, it's downright defiant. Its once sun-warm skin can be cool to the touch, but that skin peeled and squeezed puts into motion a regular confetti parade, fizzling the air with oils. It smelled brazen in the best brazen cussy sort of way, unapologetic. Her bright perfume zesting a Baptist church clear down the aisle to the wailing altar. Because yes, the groves in Florida are dying. I looked it up, read all about citrus disease, and right under that found a list of hurricanes in the years they hit those groves, and hit those groves, and hit those groves once more. And I thought of those groves dying and what it would be to drive through them now, 45 years later, and completely alone, And I thought how hard love must press its face to the growl of the world to keep more hurricanes from coming, and how maybe love can't save those groves, and how cold the mirror was when I said, well, fine then, and kissed my own reflection in an embarrassing gesture that briefly left a fog mark on my breath on the glass. I figured that was going to be the end of my day until I scuffled to the kitchen, held a slice of orange to the light. And though the fruit was cut and far from home, it spoke, said, stay. Said, don't die, at least not yet. And it was so beautiful, I was ashamed to eat it, but it was too beautiful not to eat. And so when I did, I realized that was the real kiss, the kiss I needed, pungent and bright, because there are, despite all, oranges still in the world. Number 2, because oranges. I know you're thinking, wait a minute, the title here is 100 Reasons Not to Die. And if number 1 is because oranges, and because number 2 is because oranges, and that's not much of a list, is it? And even if I let the repetition of number 1 and number 2 slide, there are still 98 more reasons to go. And really, how long do you expect me to sit here listening to all this? But wait. Hear me out. The second reason isn't an orange all wet, fresh with a kiss, but the dehydrated orb of one, just as striking in that same glass way, but dried in the oven. The fruit's juices released in a simmer pot kind of holiday smell throughout your house, all slow-like, hour upon hour on a baking tray, and you, a regular Martha Stewart, tending them, playing out a kind of domesticity you've never known, or to be more specific, the kind you never believed to be real, at least not outside TV land. Because drying oranges was just not the kind of shit anybody had time for when you were a kid, especially not with all the kids and the kinds of Christmas everybody always seemed to be working so hard to give them, by which I mean the kind of Christmas my mama was busting ass to buy. But here I am now, one crow away from chrome, the middle-aged woman turning oranges in her oven because it's the kind of thing the woman I was dating does. And to beat all, she and her friends planned to take needle and thread to string the dried discs into a garland of cranberries and rosemary and all that cookies in the oven TV land stuff. And believe it or not, it's not even for a Christmas tree. No, it's all part of a welcome home surprise they're scheming up for another friend. A homey kind of banner, so homey the friend might forget why she went away from home in the first place, by which I mean her eviction after Hurricane Helene. Now, no doubt, Helene was a hurricane that also slapped around those orange groves, but after it tore its way north and took an unexpected turn up our mountains here, where those clouds cooled and let loose who knows how many trillion fucking gallons of water it had picked up, far too much of, in a far, far too warm ocean nearly 1,127 miles away. By which I mean the hurricane took this coming home again friend's car and condemned her apartment. By which I mean the hurricane made mud that smelled of nothing like I've smelled before, the smell screaming a high note of something worse than acetone, but growling a deep down throat note of no, when a lagoon of excrement drained from a not far enough factory farm. No, when a plastics factory was crushed on the river alongside the plant where the water was treated. No, when the soil column lost its coherence, the mud out of its mind, barreling some 60 miles an hour down the steep inclines of these mountainsides, a loud no that's toddler screamed, go ahead, try to take back what you want, but what I've touched, What I've taken is mine, mine, mine. What I mean to say is simply this. The friend, like so many friends we know and some we have yet to meet, had to leave our beloved city to survive in the garland. The garland of dried orange slices was the most home-like thing I could have imagined to string up with a hand-painted sign that read, "Welcome home," but really said, "Here is a celebration of you not dying." Number 3, finally, because oranges. By which I mean the whole bag of them, right there, right in my kitchen, which means 1, 2, 3, let's see, 22, yes, 22 clementine reasons not to die. And because again, while the word orange opens with that mournful howl of a vowel, it manages to giggle out a G and an E at the end because yes, laughing these days might just keep you from dying. Laugh or die, my grandmother used to say, and after the storm we waited 53 days before we had water we could safely drink from the tap. And one of those miserable days, I took a bath in 15 gallons of water hauled up from the creek in 2 clown bright buckets made for litter called tidy cats. That's a lot of water to haul and boil, but not enough for a proper bath, so it was a miserable 2 inches shallow. And as I leaned back to try to wash my hair, I swear, floating right past my nose, a ramen noodle. That's at least 3 things to laugh at, which brings us to 25 reasons not to die. 26 if you count the loud splash of a neighbor trying to do the same busting ass in that same creek. 27 if you count his friend howling with laughter, their laughter loud enough to carry over the incessant roar of helicopters and generators and chainsaws. 28 if you count my mom, how she called when I was still mid-ramen noodle bath. How when I told her I couldn't manage to even get my hair wet, much less rinsed, she scolded. Said, Nikki, haven't I ever taught you a thing? Baby, just go to the salon. With the electricity out for miles and the roads washed out for more, I didn't laugh in the moment, but since then I told that story a dozen times to a dozen rattled, FEMA-screamed, broke, beat-down, exhausted friends. We had a good laugh at my mama's expense, which, sorry, mama, brings us up to 40. Well, 41, if you count the friend who asked me to tell the story a second time. 42, if you stop to think this is a poet during math. Not to mention the 10 that should be subtracted from this list as I waited 10 terrifyingly silent days for the birds to return after that storm. 43, if you count how beat I was after hauling that water, how I cut my finger on a shard in that creek, how 2 full weeks later, my sweetheart found the used Band-Aid from the incident and pulling it from under her pillow, she held it out and asked, "Baby girl, this yours?" I can't recall if we laughed, but it's been some 39 days since then. And though she did not shunt me for that punishable offense, we still lost each other in those despair-laden escapades, but salvaged our friendship. So that jumps us up to 82. Yes, let's count those for the ways I've been forgiven even when I don't deserve it. I'm trying hard to do the same for others, especially these days, though some mornings I'm so self-pitying as to kiss the cold of a mirror and make out with an orange slice. And what you wonder of 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88? Well, those would be the nights when the grid was out entirely and the sky above Appalachia was returned to its stars. So many I even knew existed, at least not for me, to see outside of a planetarium. So many I almost didn't want the electricity to come and return and make me start lonely all over again. To go on, 89 is when a neighbor I'd never met gave me a gallon jug of drinking water she'd fought all the way to Tennessee and back to school. 90 is when another I never met offered me a priceless box of matches. And 91 is when yet another neighbor thanked me too many times to count for simply bringing her a cup of coffee hot from my gas stove when she had no way to heat hers. And 92, well, that would be the smell of trees after. Those old giants that let go at the root when some 40% of our trees were killed. The waft of fresh broken pine and fresh broken magnolia and fresh broken oak, that if only I forgot why I was smelling such sweetness was a blessing, and when of course I couldn't forget was the curse of smelling trees that were saying goodbye with the sweetness we don't deserve. Which brings me to my final 8. And it's something I'm going to ask of you now to breathe with me. 4 inhales, 4 exhales, just 4 breaths, I swear, because I know I live in Asheville, but I promise I won't get all woo-woo and turn this into a kombucha for a yoga class. Because somehow all of us were breathing before the storm was ever born, and somehow we all breathed as the rain began to fall, and continued to breathe as the water rose and the mud rushed, and somehow continued to breathe more even when some 230 people breathed no more. And that breath, it didn't happen because we made ourselves breathe. And that breath, it came from the trees, even as they fell. And that breath, it was given as a gift. Now, watch this trick. If we take that breath in deeply down enough the center line of the spine, tickle that vagus nerve just with the fact of still being alive, if we do a full-on diaphragm dive, you get to make yourself the eye of all that's rushing past. You get to be your own eye of the storm. Each of us a single eye in these many, many storms. So won't you try with me now? We've only got 8 to make it to the top. 8. Come on now. In. 7. Out. 6. In. 5. Out. 4. In. 3. Out. 2, in, now hold, because before you let go, before you let loose that final breath, won't you promise me you'll keep breathing, that you'll breathe enough breaths until morning when it's time to eat an orange. That without thinking, you might just breathe your way to 100 if you can, but you won't die, at least not yet. Do you want me to read another poem, or should we wrap it up there? How are you feeling?
I think we do one more.
Yeah?
What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Sure.
Is that you all?
Yep.
I'm gonna get dark. Maybe dark, kind of dark. I want to end on this poem. Actually, this is one of those poems that when I wrote it, it kind of shifted my thinking. So when I can, I volunteer at a farm sanctuary called Animal Haven, which used to be run by 2 women named Trina and Barb. Bless you. And we lost Barb, but they founded it, and it's been around for over 20 years. And this incident that I'm going to read about, it happened at about the same time that I was reading a book by Rebecca Solnit. Do you guys know her?
Yeah.
She's amazing, right? So she talks a lot about this time and surviving this time, and she has a book. It's actually an older book, but it's called Hope in the Dark. And what she does is she talks about hope not as a feeling, but as a verb. Meaning, doesn't matter how you feel anymore. It's what you do. It's what you wake up and what you do. And that little shift, just in parts of speech, sort of changed everything for me. And at the same time, I got to see that in action, and this is what this looks like. This is called Against Despair. Reader, meet the two women who sunk everything they had into taking in broken animals. The gimpy and oozing critters, the ugly, lopsided, tail-less pets, urine-soaked and drooling, zested with fleas, the matted and discarded scrap heaps left growling and bucking, pissing on everything, the good remnants left roped to a chain-link fence. No, I take that back. Instead, I want you to be those two. I want you crazy enough to try to fix those beasts. To feed and brush and bathe and dip and sweet milk them whole. I want you to try, to always try, despite the odds, just as you coax the docile, fat, blind pig up on legs that eventually broke from his own inbred weight, just as you spritz the mites off a mangy hen that would be limp in the claws of a hawk later that same day. On the hill, a stubborn but sometimes gentle sheep grows cold under a blue tarp, and in your truck is a towel across the back seat for your favorite but neurotic as hell dog, how you rushed her to the vet only to see her put down. No, let me make this real. Reader, I want you tired. Every joint in your body stiff and worn. I want you to finally strip off your filthy clothes. Then I want you jolted from sleep by a cry that in your dreams sounds like an infant wailing, and now awake sounds just the damn same. Now go. Find that kid goat bleeding in the grainy dark. He's no bigger than a lap dog, and on his fist-sized heads are the buds of his horns, tiny like two popcorn pieces of warm bone, two bright spots, the only thing you can see. Flip on the switch. Now you know. With bare hands, I want you to clear the froth from his lolling tongue. I want you to grab a rag, a sponge, the corner of your shirt, anything you can find to sop up the liquid, so much of it you can't tell what's what, be it mucus or bile or vomit or blood, as if every water has been brought up for this giving in, as if his body is already a river and rushing away. Now use your arms. It takes strength to steady the convulsing of even a thing this young. Then, once his gaze goes back to white, you know what to do. You know your job. Push together the furrowed slits of his lids. Close the extinguished horizons of his eyes. Now, don't play stupid. You knew this was coming. You've seen it enough times. You're not dumb, just desperate to try to save this little meat goat the farmer dumped at your door, too septic and riddled with worms to even be killed to eat. Now, get on your knees. Mop it up. As you wring out the rags, don't push away what you know of the sun. Let yourself admit the light, how it made his ears pink and transparent, revealed the secret veins of leaves, how you adored it when they periscoped to your voice and you looked up to give you the small meditations of fresh milk and hay in his mouth. Go on. Get sentimental if you have to. Have a good cry. No one is here, and besides, who would care? Because you try, don't you? You always try. But always that impossible riddle. Always the word riddled with the word worms, as if each whip-like body was curled into a question, a wriggling puzzle, a mob infestation of questions. Parasites that love a home so hard they turned that kid goat anemic, fevering, stuttering with a murmuring heart, shitting out a writhing pile of larvae and eggs. Little sips, little hooks, little burrows. This was how, little by little, that little goat finally collapsed, arched his throat back as if to be slit, jerked his legs up into the nothing like the fetus he was just 2 months before. But here is the point. Do not ever let yourself think it didn't matter. It mattered then as it matters now, because until this morning rose dull on the horizon with this useless, good-for-nothing goat now dead on your floor, regardless, in spite of, no matter, you fed a beast worthless, a real lost cause, not unlike this whole stubborn, beautiful, fucked up planet about to seize and drown in its own melt. There really wasn't a thing you could do but admit it if you knew, if you really could say you would not have died last night, you would certainly die tomorrow. You force yourself out of bed and do what it is you do. You count his pills, warm his formula over the stove, rake out his soiled pen, and with arms wide, you bring him a fresh bale of hay. Yes, that's right. Now say his silly goat name, because yes, every living thing deserves a name. And you called him Peanut. A playful way to say he was a flake of the size he should have been, so sick he did not jump or play as he should, but leaned his tiny face exhausted into your leg. Now bend to stroke his scrawny goat neck. Say, good boy, Peanut. We got you. Now, there. Everything's gonna be just fine. You know it's a lie, but no matter. Because hope, you know by now, is not a thing you feel, but something you do. And this is your job. It's what you do. It's what needs to be done. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. We made it. You want a piece of salami for being such a good cover?
Before we wrap up, one little thought. Thank you, Nickole. That was awesome. Another round of there are more refreshments if you want to hang out, talk amongst yourselves, enjoy some good poetry vibes. Also, next year we will be doing this again, and the Poetry Society is going to bring events here in March, April, and May. And if there's anybody interested in taking over the YouTube Live part of this program, I have failed spectacularly. So if anybody wants to do that so the rest of the state can enjoy this, please talk to me after the program.
You didn't fail.
It wasn't meant to be. You guys are lucky to be in the room.
Technology failed you.
Right. Okay, books for sale over here on TV and cheers. Yeah. The table looks terrible. This is kind of where it is. Really? Well, I'm fun about it.
All right. I'm gonna eat that.
And
My dog. Hey. Actually, their dog gets a good idea.